Welcome to Barnaby's podcast, Eye of the Beholder. Barnaby's is one of the leading search engines for art, design, antiques and collectibles from over 3,000 auction houses worldwide. We aim to make the art and auction market more transparent and accessible to everyone, from beginners to collectors and professionals. In today's episode of Barnaby's podcast, Eye of the Beholder, we talk to the Pokemon collector Gary Haase. Welcome.
Well, Pontus, it's nice to finally speak with you, and I appreciate you asking me to come on.
It's a very interesting topic, I would say, because according to Barnaby's latest report, we see that the interest and not least the prices for Pokemon cards has increased radically over the last few years. So why? What is happening to the market?
Well, it pretty much all started in 2016, at least with vintage cards. In 2016, the Pokemon Go came out. Pokemon Go started, which was an app where you travel around, you walk around, you drive around, you find Pokemon and you catch them. And that was really popular. That was the early part of 2016. And then in mid-2016, I recorded an episode of Pawn Stars, which is a very popular show here in the States, and I think pretty much all over the world. It's very popular.
Yeah.
And I went on that show with, at the time, a collection that was worth about $500,000 US. And when that episode aired in the beginning of 2017, it blew up. To give you an idea how big that Pokemon segment was, the segment that I was in, it's to this day, out of 2,000 segments, it's the second most viewed episode of that popular television show. So number 2 out of 2,000. So that gives you an idea how popular Pokemon was, especially at the time. And that blew it up quite a bit. To give you an idea, that collection was worth about $500,000 in 2016, and that went up 10 times. So worth about between $5 and $10 million just a few years later.
Yeah.
So I didn't make a deal. I didn't sell them. I never had the intention to sell them. I just wanted to bring attention to the hobby, which is what I've pretty much done for 25 years.
And I mean, normally you talk about nostalgia when it comes to collecting.
Yes.
That you collect things that you had as a child. But Pokemon must have come after you were a child, haven't it?
Right. Yeah. I'm 69. I was approximately, I was like early 40s when Pokemon came out. At first, it was a bit of a business venture, where I got, Japanese. There was no English Pokemon yet. The Japanese cards were extremely popular in Japan. And I was part of the group that brought them to the United States and put them on our shop at home television shows, and it was immediately very popular. That was in January 1999, and because of the popularity, the Japanese company Media Factory, they fired me. They no longer needed me or wanted, because they saw how big financially it was going to be in the United States, and so they no longer needed King Pokémon, so they got rid of me. So, but I had 2 sons at the time. They were like 8 and 9 years old, and them, just like all the kids back then, loved Pokemon. And so I like to participate with my sons in what they enjoyed. And so I was, very, very much a part of of that time with them, and we collected and we traded and we saved and all that. So, and suddenly I was pretty much hooked. I loved Pokemon. I loved sharing those, even to this day, the memories with my sons.
I can imagine.
So yeah, you're right. It's a nostalgia thing. For each person, it's a little bit different. For me, I was already a full grown man, but I saw things through the eyes of my sons. For most of you guys, young men today in their 30s and that, for them, they could identify with it as being, what they enjoyed as a kid. For me, I enjoyed it through my son's eyes.
Are they also collecting today?
One of them is still into trading card games. Yes. And then one isn't. It's funny, after a few years, they found girls, and that kind of took the place of Pokemon.
It used to have an impact.
Yeah, right. For me, I was already married and had a girl, so I kept going with Pokemon, and I was working, and I had money, and so I didn't have to buy, sell, and trade. I mean, I didn't have to sell and trade, so I just kept everything. And basically hoarded it, just kept everything. And I didn't sell anything. After a number of years, I just stopped selling anything or trading and just kept everything I had. Not because I thought it was going to be super valuable later, but just because of that nostalgia thing you mentioned, because I enjoyed it. It brought back good memories. I could go through them and relive those early days.
So tell us about your collection. How many cards do you have today?
Well, that I have no idea, but I can tell you that I have over 120 gem mint graded, professionally graded Charizards, all from the early sets, 2003 and down to 1999. So that's the bulk of it. And then I do have cases and boxes, sealed cases and boxes, and thousands and thousands and thousands of not very valuable commons and uncommons. So a total number would be, I have 3 storage lockers, to give you an idea. So I've never thought to add them all up, but super valuable cards and items, maybe around 200.
But what about the grade that you're talking about?
Yes.
I mean, that can be translated to condition, etc. But how important is that? If you take the same card in a mint condition and a quite bad condition, what is the range of prices?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because there is a major difference. And just to give you an idea, one of my PSA 10 first edition Charizards are probably worth around $200,000 each. $200,000 each. The same card in played condition, as you may have in a kid's binder with scratches and stuff like that, maybe $200. So that kind of gives you an idea of the range from $200 to $200,000, all dependent on condition.
But what is your most valuable card in your collection?
Okay, my most valuable, I had, now there's a grading company called Beckett's, BGS, and there are today 3 Beckett 10s, pristine 10s. There's 3 of them in the world, and I have 2 of them. And those are probably $1 million cards.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Now there was only 2. And I had the only 2 in the world. And then I made a transaction with a popular influencer, Logan Paul, and he purchased a PSA 10 from me and crossed it over with Beckett's, and Beckett's gave it a pristine 10. Now, that's the third one in the world. So I have two. Logan has one, and it's the one that used to belong to me. Now, I tried to cross that card over myself at Beckett's. All my cards, I tried to get them to pristine 10s, and they didn't give it to me. Logan did it with his 20 million followers, right? and, and he ended up getting the pristine 10. So now there's three, and that's my most valuable cards.
If we put away the financial value, do you have any favorite card?
I do. I actually have a base unlimited Charizard that is played condition, maybe worth $50, $100, something like that. And it's probably my most precious card. It's the first card Charizard that my son, Devin, my youngest son, who's 30 now, but at the time he was like 8 or something, and he pulled the Charizard out of a pack, and it was so exciting. I checked on him when he went to bed, and he had it in his hand, and he was staring at that card, at that Charizard, just staring at it. He was so enthralled by it. Well, the next morning, I went in and checked on him, and that card was still firmly in his hand, yet he was fast asleep. And so that's probably, it's a memory like that I will never forget. And that is probably the most precious of all.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's a lot of emotions as well, isn't it?
Oh, I can't even, just thinking about it, I see it. I'm looking at it, as it happened. And yeah, it's very emotional.
So how has your collection of Pokemon card change over the years? Are you much more, like a professional collector now, looking for the most exclusive and most expensive cards today, or?
Well, I've pretty much years ago I pretty much accomplished all my goals in the hobby, and I started. There were a few things I wanted more of, because it's not like I wanted one of everything. I duplicates were fine with me. I like to have more than one of items. And so then I would trade. I would trade away things I didn't care as much about for things that I really wanted a lot. So my collection seriously hasn't changed a whole lot, because I rarely sold anything, out of my collection. I kept them all in storage. Some I haven't seen for years, but I know what they are. And so I'm not sure if that explains it. But so I'd say it hasn't really changed a lot. It's grown a bit each year over the years, but they're all vintage. They're all the early cards. I don't really collect the newer sets from the last 15 years. I might have some here and there just for fun. But you can only, do so much and concentrate so much, and you only have so much time. So I've stuck with those early vintage, and now I just like, showing them off. And like last month I was in Italy, and at a card show they invited me to. And I love meeting the people. In the Pokemon hobby, I'm pretty popular, so people know me, and so they get a chance, to meet me and take pictures with the cards and things like that. And then in 2 weeks, I'm going to Paris for Le Gala TCG, which is another card show. I went to Paris last year for the same show, and they invited me back. So, here in my retirement years, it's pretty humbling, that people would still be interested in me and want me to come and to meet their fans and things like that. So,
but in fact, I mean, if your name in social media and collecting communities is Gary King Pokémon Haase, right?
Right.
So how important is social media for collectors like you? I think you have like 50,000 followers on Instagram, don't you?
Yeah, I know. And that's without even trying. I don't even, I didn't even do any social media until like 3 years ago. And, being of the generation I am, that was never a big deal. And then I finally posted something on Instagram. Somebody showed me how to do it. And then it turned out, growing, to 50,000, but that's just in a few years, and that's without, even trying on, just posting pictures, now and again. So,
but is it important for collectors, social media? I mean, do you like? Is that a marketplace? Is that where you find each other and change cards or buy from each other?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, social media is what it's all about these days. And then getting information on shows where you can meet in person, like all the collecticons in the United States. There's 7 a year, all in different states, all around the country, and I go to all of those. And because of social media, the people knew me, just from by reputation for the first 20 years. People knew me, but not in a personal way. They never met me. They just knew me online, on eBay and Yahoo auctions and things like that. But then with social media, and when I finally got involved, then people started knowing me on a personal level and meeting me in person at these shows, these conventions, and now pretty much all over the world. Like I said, Italy and Paris, just in 1 month's time. And so, yeah, definitely social media is pretty much the whole story now. Yeah.
But what advice would you give someone who wants to start collecting Pokemon cards today? Would you say that person is too late to the ball, or can you still make a bargain?
No, it's funny. I heard somebody say recently, let me see, how did they put it? Oh, it's never too late, they say.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that because, again, like you mentioned, in the introduction, collecting is memories. And these kids today, they're developing their own memories. They're opening up these new Pokemon packs or MetaZoo packs, whatever they enjoy, and hopefully the parents are sharing those experiences with them, and that's going to continue on. Something I've always said is Pokemon, because people ask me, is Pokemon going to die? They've been saying this for 25 years, right? Is Pokemon going to die? Are the cards going to be worthless? Is this going to happen or that? And my standard answer is Pokemon is safe for approximately 15 to 20 years after the last set is made. So when that final set is made, 15 or 20 years more, Pokemon's going to be fine because, again, it's memories. It takes you back to your youth. The kids today, my boys are in their 30s now, but the kids who are 7, 8, 9 years old today, they're going to remember Pokemon, in 15 years, and they're going to probably go back and want to collect their memories.
So is there one card that you want to add to your collection that you don't have today?
No, I've pretty much accomplished all my goals.
Yeah.
I would like to get that card back from Logan Paul, and I've talked to him.
Yeah.
And I actually offered him $1 million for it.
Wow.
And he won't sell it. It's hard, he has so much money that money's not an issue. So I don't think I could ever get that. He told me that he'll be buried with that card.
Oh yeah. So you can say that you regret the sale a bit today then.
Right. Yeah. That's the one card I would really, really want, because before I had the only two in the world. I would love to have the only three in the world.
Can imagine.
But he said never happened. He said there's no way he would ever sell. So
but you sold that card to the American social media personality. He's also an actor and professional wrestler, Logan Paul.
Now he is.
And that time it was $150,000.
Yes.
And you asked him to sell it to you for $1 million.
Yes.
But what made you decide to sell it at that time then?
Well, remember, it was a PSA 10. It was worth about $150,000.
Yeah.
After he purchased it and then crossed it over, right, there's about 120 PSA 10s. There's only 3 Beckett 10s. It's much more rare and harder to get. I sold it to him at the time. There's a video that shows the whole thing happening, and I just knew I've always tried to build the hobby, build up the hobby. I knew if I sold one of my cards to him, that it would get a lot of attention, again, because of his 20 million followers. I knew it would help the hobby, and so that's why I finally, and I knew how much he loved it. I mean, he loves Pokemon. He has a Squirtle tattoo on his thigh. A Squirtle Pokemon on his thigh. He loves Pokemon. I knew he was sincere, and I knew it would help the hobby. And so I decided to sell him one. But I had like 10, so selling him one, I just lost one. And I don't know if you know, but soon after, my neighbor and friend, who's also a celebrity, he purchased one from me. He paid $172,000 soon after the Logan Paul one. So that was Steve Aoki, a DJ performer, and so those were the only 2 sales I've done, and I haven't done any more. And plus, I knew Steve would help. I knew that would help the hobby, and sure enough, it blew up. It blew up the hobby. So
no, but in fact, I mean, what do you think about Paul buying a Pokemon card for over $5 million last year? I mean, what did that actually mean to the market?
Yeah, you know what? In my opinion, that didn't affect the market much, because number one, there's very, very, very few cards that are worth over $1 million. And then there are very, very few people that could afford it anyway. So it's not like a bunch of people had that card and were able to sell it for that amount. There were none others. That PSA 10 Pokemon Illustrator, Logan, he traded and bought. He didn't pay cash. He paid some cash and some trade. That I really don't think that affected, very, very much, because there was only one in the world, one PSA 10 Pokemon Illustrator in the world. So, and not many people could afford it anyway, and he's not selling it anyway. So yeah, I don't think that affected the hobby anywhere near as much as when he bought the card from me, because that's a lot of money. But there's but at the time there were 120 of those, and he bought one, so there were still more out there. And the difference between 100,000 and $1 million, more people might be able to afford 100,000 than they could afford 5 million.
Yeah.
So that's just what I guess.
But you mentioned you're going to Italy, you're going to Paris. Are you bringing the collection when you go there?
No.
No,
it's the collection is worth so much now that I couldn't take that chance. But I do bring a couple cards, and then I take pictures with the kids holding the cards, holding 1 or 2 cards, and they enjoy that. They enjoy that a lot. Well, the adults do too. So I bring a couple cards, but not the collection. No.
But how do you display them at home? Do you keep it neatly in the chest of drawers, or do you have them, like on display?
Interesting question. No, I don't keep them at home. Ever since they blew up so much in price, in value,
Yeah.
I have to keep them better, better stored away.
Yeah.
Because in case of fire or theft or something like that, now you're talking about a massive amount of money. But for many years, yeah, I kept them all at home. I kept them all in my little home office, and I displayed them. I put them up, and right now, the things I display are pictures, like pictures of Logan and me, doing stuff and playing with the Pokemon or the MetaZoo cards, signing them. And, we do a lot of work. A lot of my wife and I's work goes towards our autism charity. And so we have a lot of things displayed that relate to Pokemon and autism, where we've held events and, pretty big events, and which Logan has been a part of and Steve Aoki has been a part of. And so that's kind of what we display at home. But the cards themselves, yeah, we can't do that anymore.
Oh, fantastic. So do you think if it wouldn't have been for the Pokemon cards, do you ever think you would have met Logan Paul?
Not Logan, probably not, because he reached out to me because he was interested in seeing my collection. And then when he saw my collection, then he built up this thing to buy a card. Steve, yes, yeah, because we're neighbors. At the time, we lived real close by each other, and so yeah, I knew him anyway. But talk about meeting people. I've probably met 10,000 people I never would have met if it wasn't for Pokemon. But having that common interest, plus having a little notoriety in the hobby, has given me the opportunity to meet thousands of people, because I go to all our Collecticon conventions. I go to like 3 international conventions a year, and I meet thousands of people, and so it's certainly made a difference there. That's true.
It's a good result of a love story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, but what do you think is the future of Pokemon card collecting?
Yeah, well, I think it's safe. I think the hobby is safe and is going to thrive, for another couple decades.
And is this a global phenomenon?
It really is. It is, and it has been from the beginning, because we've had Pokemon cards, international Pokemon cards, going all the way back to 1999. The Italian and the Portuguese and the French and the German and the Spanish. That early Pokemon set, the first one, the base set, was available in the early years in all those countries anyway. So now it's even spread out, further. Like in your Scandinavian countries, I'm sure Pokemon is popular and has been for a long time. And I hope to go maybe to your great country, one of these times, because certainly you have shows, and if they ever invite me, I'd love to get up there.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that there are a lot of collectors. My kids were just playing it, but I know my brother's kids have a lot of cards. So I think I will go there and see if I can make a bargain.
Right.
But my last question will be about collecting again, because normally when you speak to collectors, they always started somewhere, A lot of times it's stamps with their grandpas or coins or so. Were you a collector as a kid as well?
Oh, I have been a lifelong collector. My first collectible, and I remember it so well. I was born in 1954. I'm 69 today. I was born in 1954, And I remember in 1959, 1960, so I was about 5, 6 years old, I collected bottle caps. You know, where you knock the top off a bottle, and inside they put pictures of football players. And so I remember as a little 5, 6-year-old going to all the gas stations using a magnet to pull up the bottle caps and then collecting the bottle caps, trying to get one of every player they offered. And so for me, I have been collecting since I was 5, 6 years old. Soon after that, I collected sports cards. I collected television show, cards like Addams Family and the Munsters. And so, yeah, I'm a lifelong collector, but my first taste came with those bottle caps when I was 5, 6 years old. I remember so well too.
Now it's interesting because this collectibles has has a long life, both when it comes to the items you collect, but also about the memories.
The funny thing is for a lot of families, it runs in the family. Like your father was a collector, he collected, you became a collector, your children became collectors. That wasn't true with me. My mom and dad, they couldn't throw things away fast enough. They never collected anything. They thought everything, once its purpose was over, they got rid of it. And so I, as far as a collector's gene, I did not get that from my family. I guess I started that. But now one of my sons is a collector, so maybe from here on out, my family will, pay more attention to collecting. Plus, with the values of the Pokemon, that doesn't hurt either. That gives you an incentive to think. Well, although to tell you the truth, I don't. Maybe out of 50 collections I have, maybe only 2 or 3 are worth anything. Worth anything monetarily. They're not value, but the value is in their memories. So like with Pokemon, it wasn't because I was smart. It's just because I collected everything and wanted to keep them. And most things ended up being worth, little to nothing. And some things got lucky, like Pokemon. So.
But that is what it is about to be a true collector, I would say.
Yeah.
Collect everything because, you buy 10, one is the super lotto.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so King Pokémon, thank you for being in the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope we can do it again.
Hope so.
Okay.
And good luck now with the collecting. To keep up with the latest trends and receive weekly updates on the art and auction world, subscribe to our newsletter on barnabys.com or read Barnabys magazine online.